Hello, my name is Owen, and welcome to a quick review of Robert Jordan's The Great Hunt. What I want to do is give a brief overview of the book's about, tell you things that I liked, and tell you the things that I didn't like. Jumping straight into it, it is the dead of night. And yet, I just finished The Great Hunt and simply had to speak about it. This is book 2 of the Wheel of Time series. I am reading it through for the very first time, trying to do it as fast as possible. I wanted to finish it before the end of 2025. We're not on pace to do that. That being said, we did read 2 of these books so far this month, and they're sitting right here behind me. The remainder of them, or most of them, I am missing a few that I have to get on my Kindle, but other than that, they're all right there. But we're making good progress in reading the series. It's been an interesting journey for me so far. As I said in my review of The Eye of the World, I was kind of hesitant to jump into the series. But because I came into possession of the majority of the books, I decided just to go on a whim and read them. And interestingly enough, from some of the comments on my review of Eye of the World, people said someone said that was like one of the weakest books in this series. Another comment made a joke about how Wheel of Time fans hate the Wheel of Time. So I'm getting the sense I'm wandering into an interesting fandom with a lot of varied opinions about characters and which book is the best, which books are bad, which is interesting for me. It's a fun playground because I will simply have my own opinions and I might ruffle some feathers with my hot takes, but it's kind of interesting to be reading a series that has so many years and decades of varied opinions about. So it'll be interesting to explore, and that's why I love it so much when you guys leave your thoughts and comments on the videos. That's because it gives me engagements. It makes me look like I'm a popular creator, a popular video maker. But also it's interesting to hear the back and forth of what the fans think about, like the real fans, as someone who's just kind of wandering into this blind. But enough about that. The Great Hunt itself, I had a bit of a journey in terms of my opinions of this book. I would say for the majority of it, I would say probably the first half, maybe in the first 2/3 of the book, it kind of felt like a weird interlude book. Like it felt like the plot was flimsier, not flimsier maybe, but just more transitional. And I was thinking when I was reading it, I'm like, oh, this is how he made it to 14 books. He has books where it's just like a quest to do something very specific, and it's them traveling and encountering new magic in the world and a little bit of world building, different cultures or whatever, but specifically in this case it was to get back the horn and Matt's dagger, essentially. So I kind of felt like through the majority of it was kind of a weird side quest. Like I know like the horn was important to the prophecy or whatever, but I felt it strange that we went from like book 1, it's Moraine with all of the important people. They're all going on a quest, and they're fighting the Dark One at the end of it in a confrontation. And I thought going into the series, that's what it would be like. It would be kind of like Harry Potter, where it's like he's fighting Voldemort at the end of the book, every single book. And then it'd be like, okay, he's fighting an iteration of the Dark One or a Dark One's minion at the end of every book. And when I was reading the first 2/3 of it, I'm like, oh, it's not that. It's going to be that interspersed with weird side quests that maybe help to achieve their end goal, but it's kind of vague. We don't really understand how that plays into it yet. So all that to say, I wasn't not liking the first 2/3 of the book. I just thought it was a weird vibe to it. And for those of you wondering that are tracking these kinds of things, still didn't love Matt in this book. I will say he does a little bit more. He's a little bit more useful at the end of the book. But throughout the whole of it, I'm like, I don't know your personality other than that you complain. And he's not a trickster. Like he's a little prankster. He's so mischievous. Like he's just a whiner. That's what he is to me right now. But at the end of the book, he did do some things, not extremely important things. I mean, I feel like anybody could have done what he did, but he did do some things, and he wasn't useless in like the fighting at the end. So he gets points in that at least. But he is my least favorite of the main characters. Not that he's okay. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna leave it at that. In terms of my other character-like trackers, Rand is still very good, but I feel like his arc, the majority of this, was very repetitive. It was basically just like, I don't want to be the dragon. Am I going crazy? Am I not going crazy? Rinse and repeat. But I still like him. I still think his journey is interesting, and I do like the aspect of like him, the push and pull of his power, where it's like, he can use it. He will be extremely powerful at it, guaranteed. But it's also guaranteed it will corrupt him and will make him go crazy eventually. I like that push and pull of the dynamic. I think it's an interesting evolution. I think the conversations he was having with himself throughout the majority of it were kind of repetitive. And partially the reason why I think that is, even though he's traveling with a group for the majority of it, in this book in particular, he wasn't bouncing off a lot of characters like I wanted him to, because it's a secret, or he keeps it a secret from most of them. Like eventually, like the other boys find out. The book starts with the girls finding out, but they separate from them very early on. But I was hoping, like, he spends so much time with Loial and with the sniffer Hurin, but they don't know he's the dragon through the whole book, so he can't like bounce off them. He can't get into interesting conversations. He's all stuck in his own head. So I think that's probably why I contributed to so much of the repetitiveness of his inner dialogue, because he had nobody to bounce off of. And I also wish in this book that honestly, like, Mat and Perrin had more to do. That's partially the reason my opinion didn't change about Mat that much, because like we only had a few scenes of him whining in the beginning of the book, and then he kind of disappears. And same thing with Perrin too. He had such an interesting power introduced, like who he is introduced, and he's very underutilized in this book. And we also barely get any screen time or page time with Moiraine and Lan, which also kind of gives me insight of how this series is. It's not just like the guys from book one going on, everyone from book one is our core cast and they're just going to be spread out on different adventures, maybe spreading out throughout the world. No, it seems like the series will be very intentional about who's getting a storyline in this book, and a character like Moiraine and Lan, if they're not important to the specific plot, they're not going to be in that specific plot. But Robert Jordan's not going to shoehorn them in. Like there's some chapters with Moiraine, but overall fairly absent for the book, which also I feel like contributed to me thinking it was kind of like a transitionary book, if that makes any sense at all. But in terms of highlights, I do like I said, the kind of push and pull of Rand's power, but there's also a lot of dimensionality exploring in this book, and I kind of like that exploration of the world. There's the scene where they're trying to use like the stones to teleport themselves, and then Rand has flashes of all his different lives, and like him being defeated by the Dark One, like flashes of different possibilities, like the parallel universes of like if he made a different decision, if he stayed a shepherd, if he like took advantage of him being a dragon, if he didn't ever realize he was the dragon. And there's also a similar thing with that during the White Tower chapters, which I really, really enjoyed. I think Nynaeve and Egwene in like the White Tower and the training, they're becoming like indoctrinated into like the Aes Sedai society. Very, very interesting, and highlight for me for the first half of the book for sure. I found those chapters more interesting than the quest for the Horn chapters in the first half of the book. But there's the scene where Nynaeve has to go through like the trial, and then they kind of like torture her with very personal feelings, like her relationship with Lan, and then also like her at Amon's Field, and like her abandoning the town, like exploring his insecurities. That chapter specifically of her going through those trials is my favorite chapter of the entire book. I just think it's so interesting. I like this exploration of like parallel universes, of parallel, like how the choices are affecting the timelines or whatever, because it's very obvious this is a very timeline focused series. It's about like the revolutions of the Wheel of Time, and how time like repeats itself, but it's different every time. And I knew that like that was like the general concept, like the Wheel of Time and the Dragon Reborn. It's about like like not like resurrection, but what's the word? I can't think of the word. Like when you die and you come back as another thing. What's that called? I can't think of it right now. But it's just about like it's the Wheel of Time. It's the Wheel of Time, but I didn't realize how time focused it was. And then there's the great scene at the end where that comes into the forefront when they finally use the horn, and those heroes come back from the past. They're finally summoned to help in the final battle. And speaking of that end as well, I very much enjoyed the last quarter of the book. I think things really picked up, and I think there was a lot of payoff from those first three quarters. And then I started to like, I got the vision by the end of it. It wasn't so much as like a vamp book, like I feared it was going to be through the first half. All those little setup things did have a plot to play. They took Rand to a specific part in his journey of becoming the dragon, and like Moraine seeds as he planned at the very beginning of the book. But also the girl storyline as well had a great payoff. And let me just say, like the whole thing with the Shan-Chan, and like they're basically like keeping like Aes Sedai, people with the power, like as slaves, like that whole concept, like the Daman or whatever they were called. I found those chapters extraordinarily disturbing and like not hard to read, but like hard as a concept for me to like think about. Very, very disturbing. And that whole concept for me came out of absolute nowhere because like the transition from them being in a safe place to them being into this world where this horrible thing is happening to Egwene, like it was almost like tonal whiplash for me, like how disturbing that was. And glad it worked out for them at the end because like I'm like, I don't know, like if this happens to her, like if we're transitioning to the next book and she's still in this situation, like this is might be like, it's like almost like too disturbing. Very effective in terms of like how horrible that process is. The whole thing, it's like it's kind of like mind controls, like losing body control, like instant torture, like magic induced slavery. But it's the way that he described those scenes in particular, very, very disturbing. But it really amped up the stakes for that final part of the book for their storyline in particular. And then obviously it ramps up as the boys get there and they go for their quest to retrieve the horn. I thought that whole conclusion sequence was great. The blowing of the horn, the final battle, kind of Rand taking up this mantle of the Dragon Reborn. Great conclusion, and it really elevated this book for me. Through the first half, as you kind of get take a guess, I wasn't loving it. There was like it just felt like things were moving too slowly for me, and I didn't know where they were moving slowly to. But it did pay off, and that ending alone, I feel like, really took this book to the next level. And I could end up saying like it was an enjoyable read, and it was shorter than the first book, or at least it felt shorter. It's a different size of the book. So it's like 200 less pages, but like if you remember, like it's up top there. Like I had like the mass market short paperback. So I don't know, it might be the same amount of pages, might be the same amount of word count, but this one overall felt shorter. And it felt, I don't know, it was a weird structure. I think I got that point across, but the ending of it was fantastic, and it made me excited to continue reading the story. And I think it sets up our characters in a very interesting way. I think Rand is an interesting place, having like kind of embraced this, or being forced to embrace this title. His title is at least publicly announced to the world that he's the dragon. So we're going to get more like politics, world dynamics coming down upon him as this battle with the Dark One ramps up. And also on that point, one thing I think is hilarious is that like, because he's the Dragon Reborn, he's the chosen one. He also like is like irresistible to all like the female characters in the book. And there's like going to be like a love quadrangle with 3 of the women, and like they're like, it's like it prophesized that like they all will try to get him and he might choose one of them or none of them. I think that was a little bit strange to me. I don't hate the idea of it, but the fact that like some of these characters like Min and Elaine, he met like maybe one time, but they're like, yeah, like we could be his husband too, Egwene. It's like, okay, where did that come from? Didn't ask, didn't even think about it. You met him one time. Is he that attractive? I don't know. Maybe he is. Maybe a ginger in this world is just so irresistible that they simply must have him. But I thought those dialogues were interesting. Not bad, but they were interesting. And I hope they don't get too deep into the cheesiness of that quadrangle love dynamic drama. But yeah, overall, I would say, yeah, I have no idea where this is going, actually. The fact that there's still 12 books remaining, I don't understand. And I like kind of going back to what I said earlier, like I thought it was going to be like Harry Potter where he defeats the Dark One at the end of every book. He did that again, but it's still so vague. Like he's like killing him every time, but like then Moiraine goes, but it's not enough. Okay, like when are we going to start clued into like what the end game is here? But I'm not too anxious about it because there's 12 books left. I'm sure we'll get to it eventually. And as long as I'm enjoying myself in the moment to moment, I suppose I'll keep going with glee. Like I was never going to stop anyway. But so far, in comparing the two, I don't know which one I like better, because I do like the ending of this one better. I think it made more sense. Whereas the ending of the first book was kind of like, I don't really know what's going on, but sure thing. He used the power within to defeat him, sure, whatever. This ending was a lot better, but I think I enjoyed the journey aspect of the first book better. So I think I would rank Eye of the World slightly above The Great Hunt right now. And the thing, going back to the very beginning of the video, what I want to know is like, is that a common thought? What's the public consensus about The Great Hunt? Is this a well-loved book? Or is this kind of a stinker book? Or is it kind of middle of the pack? I want to know what the public thinks and if that compares at all to what my thoughts were. But so far, 2 books into the series, I am enjoying myself so far. I like the characters. It's an interesting world, interesting magic dynamics. It's been expanded upon in this book a little bit, and I'm sure it'll get expanded even further from here. But that's all I got for you. Be sure to like and subscribe if you'd like the video and you want to see more like in the future. And as always, thanks for sticking around.